Hello, I am Sean Sands from Gamers with Jobs. I wanted to do a short series, 3 episodes, on the state of ARPGs, action role-playing games, and focusing on the kind of, to my mind, the big three. Though there are certainly others that I could probably catch up on, including some classics, and probably some out there I don't even know about. But focusing on Diablo 3. Path of Exile, and Grim Dawn. And starting here with Path of Exile, what I really want to do is kind of go in and get a sense of, one, how these games can have so much of the same flavor, the same components, at the same time feel very different and offer very, very different things. I think each one has its own sort of identity and the things that sort of define it, and give a good reason why I think they can all coexist and build their own audience, build their own communities. Starting with Path of Exile, which I think is probably, at least from a depth and complexity perspective, and sort of a breadth perspective, to me, the most interesting one. To get right into it, I'll just sort of dive into a new game, show you what it looks like if you're new to Path of Exile, and then I'll show you some of my higher level characters. Now, when I say higher level, I mean something very, very different than people who've been playing Path of Exile for months and years. As you can see, I have a level 44 character in 29, which is achingly low. It's only about halfway to the level cap. Fairly new to Path of Exile and Grim Dawn as well. So this isn't so much a video about sort of end-game content as it is just sort of comparing the game experiences of the two, with the understanding that end-game content really is a defining factor, right? That's in many cases, it's its own game. And when we get to Diablo 3, we'll talk more about end-game content. But when I talk about Path of Exile, what I really want to talk about is sort of how allowing multiple paths and multiple directions, and sort of a broad capacity for people to create their own experiences makes Path of Exile such a really interesting and dynamic and game. It's something worth paying attention to. In fact, you can kind of see here, a lot of times these will populate with multiple events, and these are sort of limited run events that you just join, and then you play those events totally separate from any other characters or any sort of season play or anything like this. So this is actually one of the longer events, and 48-hour flashback solo event, which means if you joined in, this game only runs for 48 hours, and you start at level 1, and there's all sorts of map or monster modifiers that impact what that play experience is like. Like this one in particular maps have a lot tougher monsters, and the monsters attack faster, and it's a hardcore mode, so when you die, you're done. Your character actually moves to the regular league, but you can't do this event with that character anymore. And it's a competitive mode, so the people who do the most get the highest, advance the most, depending on the rules of the event itself. They get rewards with points and gear and stuff like that at the end of these events. Some of the events are only an hour or two, then you have events which are 2 days long. So there's lots of little reasons to keep coming back to this game and starting over fresh and getting really good at adapting to what the devs throw at you. If you want to do something more sort of typical, when you create a game, you have your sort of standard games over here, but there's always sort of these leagues, and this, as I'm doing it right now, is the Prophecy League, which means there's this dynamic in this game, this mechanic in the game, where you will occasionally find these silver coins, and you'll turn them into an NPC in town, and she will tell you your future. And what that means is she'll tell you will find a pack of, advanced monsters with really great loot, or you will find a level that has all these kinds of modifiers to it, or you'll find a level that has lightning shooting down on it all the time. So it sort of sets up these mini moments within the game to add something to it. And this is the default lead right now, and once this league is over, it'll change and it'll be something else, and any characters you have will just move over to standard. But I want to show you basically sort of what the game looks like. So we'll pick a character. We'll name this J. just for a moment. This isn't something I'll keep with. One of the things I do like about this game, it doesn't have, it's not like sorcerer, fighter. It's like you have witch and you have Templar, you have Scion, you do have a ranger, but your fighter guy is a marauder, and that's important too because
They were right to fear me.
they aren't.
If only they had listened to their cowardice. Had they not taken my home with fire, I would not
Because
have taken their children.
having those sort of standard classes would imply a gameplay structure that Path of Exile doesn't really follow.
The very sand shivers with malice. There's a power here that welcomes me.
Boss is dumb now.
Let's go with that. One of the things I do like, or at least I feel, is that the writing is also really surprisingly good in this game. I found myself more often stopping to listen to what people are saying and reading on from there. So, again, apologies if you're a Path of Exile expert. This is sort of to, aimed at people who might not be playing it as much and talk a little bit about it from a high level. But rather than just getting skills, going to a trainer somewhere, skills actually come as parts of items. So there's this gem that's a fireball. And then I can put this blue gem, there's blue and green and red, into an item. And now I have access to that skill. And I'll just probably make that my default skill. I'm not going to go into all the different mechanics of it, but I want to focus on this idea of adding, like I said at the start, having a game that is really adaptive to the playstyle. And this is really this skill mechanic that Path of Exile has, I feel like, is really conducive to that. Because you'll find skills across all kinds. Like, you're not going to strictly be limited to just sort of sorcerer skills. They'll probably, I think they come up more often, and obviously they're sort of easier for you to use, but you'll have access and visibility to these skills of a ranger, or that you'd normally put to a fighter or something like that. So if you want to kind of create that fighter mage idea, you can do that. You can very much do that. And so the builds are more interesting to me, I feel like, which is, I think, one of the big things about a really, really good action RPG is having, a lot of strong opportunities for building a kind of character that you want. Now, at the same time, I think there is not a downside, but there is a payment to be made to that, which is Path of Exile becomes really complex. Might be the wrong word for it. Might be. But also might not be. It's a little, I don't want to call it impenetrable because that gives the impression, an impression that I'm not sure I entirely mean. I'm just playing through the first level here just to kind of give you a sense of what it looks like, and then I want to show you the progression, the advancement system, which is probably the defining thing about Path of Exile. But really, I keep thinking of things I could say that, and then attach that to, this is the defining thing about Path of Exile, like the gem system. And then I could think of the flask system, like that's the defining thing about it. And no, then I think, wait, no, actually what the defining thing about it is that your currency is items in the world. And these little scrolls and different, orbs and stuff like that. You never get coins. You never get something, really sort of simple like that. You get, like if I sell these, I get, shards and fragments that when stacked give, some sort of ability. Like this armor scrap here can be used to improve the quality of an armor, scroll of wisdom. And you can even see, I'm not keeping this guy, so it doesn't matter. But you can see, like, here's all the different things that are in my stash, and they'll do things like reforge the links between sockets and upgrade items, and remove properties or change the properties of an item. And here's a sense of, like, there's a ton of different skills out there that you can use and mix and match, and the way that they work together. You have some of these which are support, like you put this gem next to another gem, and rather than adding a new skill, it does something to that skill. In this case, adds more area effects. So let's say I wanted to take my fireball, which has an AoE, and then let's say this was a blue gem, and there was a little link here between, like here, I could put this next to it if I was high enough level, put this next to it, and now my fireball would have a stronger AoE. So all these things that you're managing and adjusting and adapting to kind of define the kind of character you ultimately are going to build. A zombie. Like, this is a good example. I'll show you in a minute. Let's say I wanted to build a character that was really based around having sort of an army of zombies and skeletons and stuff like that around me. Then I would focus on these and attach stuff to them. So that's all really well and good as far as, you know, setting up this base idea of a game which allows a lot of flexibility to it. But that's nothing compared to the skill tree. And here's the skill tree for the entire game. And you can't zoom out enough. And rather than this being, you know, just the skill tree for my witch class, like each of these main hubs is where a different class starts. So everybody shares the same skill tree. So let's assume, I don't know who this is, but let's think this is probably, looks like it's another caster class. I think this is the Templar over here. So maybe that, I don't know who this is. But let's say that, you know, this is sort of an obvious soul siphon, is an obvious, you know, path for this one. This is the Scion down here. So what's one of theirs? Like leadership, having a radius to aura skills and stuff like that. Let's say I wanted my character to really kind of combine with one of these. You would choose skills along a path and then follow that path, and then you can get all the way over here. You can even get way down, you know, over to here where I think the Marauder is. You know, I could follow sort of a winding path and kind of go here and then down, and now I'm into the Marauder area. So you start, you know, each time you go, you're following sort of a path that eventually leads to these areas where, you know, you get kind of bigger boosts. They this sort of defines what leads up to it. So I can have a choice of either focusing on like mana and regeneration rate, an energy shield, or just pure spell damage. And the way I follow that path leads to things that sort of build off of it. So if I'm following spell damage, all of a sudden I'm over in this sort of elemental damage area. And, you know, I decide I'm actually building an elemental lightning build. Great, I'm going to go this way. I'm going to take, you know, spell damage up to here. Get this, which is a lot more spell damage and cast speed and intelligence, and then follow it up to here to Lightning Walker, right? It's really, really fun. This is probably my favorite part of this game, is how flexible and fluid it is, and how you're constantly making interesting decisions. And for somebody like me who tends to play a lot of these games and play them multiple times and play them over and over again and start new characters, this is really, really cool. Like, I can come right back here and the next witch I make will be nothing like this one. Maybe I go for a totem build, or maybe I come over here and go for like this one. You know, I just got that raised zombie. I can go over here and now I have a +1 to the maximum number of zombies I can have. So that adds just a lot to it. We'll just take one of these. So that's how the game starts. Let's take a look at, like I said, I don't have any super high level, but if I look at something like my Templar here, which is a very different kind of build. I'll try not, don't worry about what you're looking, I'll try not to show a bunch of stuff. So we'll go back to, let's see, we'll just do someplace in Act 3 here. We'll go to the library. That's a pretty just stock standard place. So this build, this character is more like what I was talking about a moment ago. He's sort of a totem and army build. My favorite class back in Diablo 2 was the Necromancer. I loved walking around with, you know, all these skeletons and, you know, golems and stuff like that. And, you know, no game has ever sort of captured that feeling of just sort of walking around, throwing an army, and then throwing a bunch of, you know, dots and curses and stuff and just letting them go to town. And this is sort of trying to pursue that. Like, I can raise 2 specters, I can raise a bunch of skeletons, I can raise a flame golem and zombies, and then I have a bunch of really super skeletons that I can drop after I kill enough guys and sort of create this army. And I did that by following my very own sort of path through different places. See, it's not, I didn't take one straight line. I kind of wanted to be able to, you know, have, you know, still have some, you know, pure damage dealing skills. Plus went this way for this +1 zombies, +1 zombies, Minions are stronger, have more speed, and some totems and stuff like that. So I'll give you kind of a quick glance at what that looks like when you're playing it. So start off with just some totems, and then I can begin to raise my own army from the fallen dead that I killed, which is awesome. That's exactly how I want to play a game like this. And probably why, even though it's taken me a little bit of time to sort of find my way with Path of Exile, and again, there is a lot to be said about how, once you get your arms around the concept of how this build works, that's nice. But it's kind of inapproachable for a while. It's not super easy. It's not going to kind of make it overly simple to figure out how to get that kind of build and how to be comfortable with it. So, I can just flat out start to make some zombies. Looks like we got.
Must have time to gather.
So now I build in a bunch of skeletons, and we'll do this here and drop a totem, and I'm just going to go let my guys do their thing and just kind of keep my little army up and going. Now I've got little lightnings around me, so pretty quickly I'm just a walking thing of death. Oh, don't know what that is. Never gotten that before. So you get a sense, as you progress further in the game, you begin to create this really interesting kind of mix of all these things that you've collected over time. And you can do some respec. It's not super easy to do, and you collect stuff over time, but as you're making these builds, inevitably you're going to be like, oh, I wish I'd gone down this tree less, or I'm not using this as much anymore. And that's because, you'll get a new weapon that you want to use, and it links up in a different way. So you get a sense of it, and I'll just show, as you can see, we were talking earlier about the way things link together. Like here I have this fire support gem connected to my flame golem and my flame totem. I have this chance to flee support connected to firestorm. So if I'm dropping a firestorm, anybody who gets hit might flee. And this makes it, what I really like about this is it gives you more interesting choices to make as you're getting new loot. So it's not simply, I got a new coat, it's plus 25 intelligence instead of plus 20, so I'm going to switch it out. Well, that's all well and good, but what if, it's 3 red gems? What if it's like this? Well, you might not have easy places to put these anymore. So you're either going to have to start making this choice about, well, I'm going to have to mix my build up a little bit, or I'm going to have to try and change the coat, or maybe I just keep this one for now, even though a new one has better abilities attached to it, because I really want to keep my chance to flee connected to my firestorm, and none of my other gear. This one would, but none of my other gear does that well. Let's, for the sake of argument, say that. So, Path of Exile, really, really good, and I haven't even touched on sort of the big kicker with it. It's sort of like the for lack of a better term, I don't know, it's like the trump card that this game has that none of the others do. And that is that it is just simply, entirely, completely free to play. You just go on Steam and download it. And here's the thing. What you're seeing right now, I have not paid a dime for. I would, and in fact, I'm really inclined to at some point, given how much I'm just enjoying it. But the things that are in the microtransaction shop are all sort of quality of life stuff and, cosmetic. There's nothing in here to, you can buy, additional character slots and stuff like that. But it's things like, extra stash for, your extra tab for your stash, extra character slots. It's kind of cool armor. I don't know if these replace the appearance. Yeah, it's just appearance. So it's not even, get this cool, awesome armor with all these special abilities. It's simply an appearance. It's a cosmetic thing, which is really, really cool because I have exactly as much access and ability to do all the, the regular events and have access to all of the same skills and the same sort of game experience as somebody who's given, grinding your games $50, $100, $1,000. They aren't making a distinction between the people who pay and the people who don't, which is really cool. Which is, it's sort of the ideal in many ways of what you're looking for from a free-to-play game, compared to what sort of becomes standard like mobile devices, where microtransactions. It's not like my cooldowns take longer, or I have can't have as many slots in my armor or things like that. That's like the big thing about it. It's the other defining characteristic of Path of Exile. I get this full-bodied, full-featured experience, including the expansions. This comes with several expansions at this point. Ascendancy was the most recent. A brand new expansion is coming out here in the beginning of September, which adds a ton of end-game content and new bosses and a new sort of end-game progression mechanic. It downloads automatically after September. If you play this game, is September 2016. If you start this game up, it's going to be right there. If you download it for the first time, you're going to have access to all of that immediately. You're not paying anything for it. So, just the amount of game that's here for absolutely free is the most of any. I can't think of another game that even comes close. And this game has become so full-featured and so fleshed out and so strong over time. It's hard not to say, if you're an action RPG fan, that you should go try Path of Exile. And yes, like, its downsides are in some ways its own strengths. It is so fully featured. It has so many elements to it. It has such a strong progression path. It has this kind of deep and complex skill system. It has, all these sort of vendor recipes and, its own economy that is really, really mature at this point, that it can seem unapproachable. And your first couple of times, it's going to take a little time to get the feel of it and make it feel like it's actually doing what you're hoping it would. But once it does, once it clicks, it's really, really cool. So, that's a quick look at Path of Exile. Like I said, it's available on Steam for $0. If you're looking to play a good action RPG, and as we look at the other ones, as we look at Grim Dawn, as we look at Diablo 3, I think it's really important. I'm not trying to rank these. I'm not trying to rate them. I'm not trying to say Path of Exile is the best one out there, or Diablo 3, or Grim Dawn, or whatever, right? The point here is to evaluate sort of the state of the ARPG game systems. And Path of Exile is a really, really great entry into it. It has a lot of depth. It calls back a lot of things that I know that people who were maybe bounced off of Diablo 3 felt it was, it wasn't up to the standards of Diablo 2. A lot of those people came to Path of Exile and found something they really like. So if you haven't tried it before and you're into these kinds of games, you're doing yourself a disservice by not giving it a shot. Really, really good game. They're really exciting. So that's my quick look at Path of Exile. For those of you who play it all the time, and love to hear your thoughts. The other things you think that make it stand out that I, as a newish player, haven't gotten to. If you give it a try, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it and get your feedback on it. And until next time, I think we'll look at Grim Dawn, which is also another PC action RPG game, more of an indie game. But until then, as always, my name is Sean Sands. Thank you for joining me for Path of Exile, and we will see you real soon.